This is a Voyescape podcast. You can find all of our travel podcasts from around the world at voyescape.com.
So welcome back for this week's bonus episode. We're continuing on with Istanbul week, doing a bit more of a deep dive into the city. In our last episode, we talked about what to do, where to stay. We touched a little bit on where to eat, but we wanted to dig a little bit more into a particularly unique place. I know somewhere you recommended that I go check out when I was in the city recently, Tim, and we had a great time there based on your recommendation. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your favorite restaurant in Istanbul? And then I know we're also going to talk a little bit about the Turkish Bath experience and why that's worth spending some time to check out when you're in the city as well.
Absolutely. And I definitely have thoughts on Turkish Bath as well. But this restaurant is one of my favorite. It's definitely my favorite restaurant in Istanbul. It's one of my favorite restaurants in the whole world. It's called Ciya, C-I-Y-A, there's an accent involved somewhere there. Ciya Sofrasi. And it is on the Anatolian side, on the Asian side of Istanbul. So if you've ever been to Istanbul, most of the attractions are on the European side. So Blue Mosque, all the Ottoman sites, Topkapi Palace, all that stuff, Istiklal Street, the shopping street, all of them on the European side. It's a little bit more residential. It's a little bit more local. You got to make an effort to get there. You hop on a ferry, cross the Bosphorus, cross from Europe to Asia, and you'll arrive, if you take the right ferry, you'll arrive in Kadıköy, which is very dense, very busy local neighborhood, and 10 minutes off the ferry, you walk up a few blocks and you get into a market. You know, it's a fish market, it's a produce market. You've got baklava, you've got cheese, you've got olives, more olives than you can imagine, really. And walk a few blocks and you get to Ciya. And the chef there, he's been featured. I mean, the restaurant and him have been featured in the New Yorker and Food and Wine and Bon Appetit and all these top publications. And the chef, I'm not gonna take a chance on saying the last name. It's a fairly complicated. Everyone can look it up. It's a little bit of a complicated pronunciation situation. I don't think I've ever. It starts with a D, but I'm just gonna call him Chef Moussa. Has been featured also on Chef's Table on Netflix and other shows and publications. Very, very, very interesting guy. He, in the 90s, went all over the country and he learned how to make different regional foods all over Turkey. And he went into the old grandma's kitchens and got them teach him how to make all these different traditional dishes. And then he brought them all under one roof. And it's not an expensive restaurant. It's been named to some of the lists of the best restaurants in the world. But just beautiful kebab, beautiful cheeses, just so many great foods to eat. And you don't need a big budget for it. So I love it. I absolutely love it.
I thought, on your recommendation, we went and had a lunch there and really digging into the menu. I thought one of the things that was really cool is that he's taken a lot of dishes that were almost becoming extinct, right? Things that a lot of people were forgetting even were these very regional, very specific dishes from different parts of Turkey and recreating them and really preserving them there, almost like a culinary anthropologist is, I think, how you described him, Dewey.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the details that I just love is that I believe he now has 4 restaurants. They are all on the same block or all within a couple blocks of each other. And it's because he wanted, we have all these celebrity chefs now who have restaurants all over the world and more power to them. Great. He wanted to have restaurants that were close walking distance to each other because he wanted to visit every single one of them every day. And so I probably go there every single time I've been to Istanbul, and I've been to Istanbul maybe a dozen times. He's almost always there. If you just say, oh, is Chef Moussa here? And he'll be sitting there in his wrinkled green t-shirt, smoking a cigarette, chatting with his buddy. And you go over, he doesn't speak English, but somebody will translate for you. and he's there. He's present. He's in his restaurant. One of the great restaurants in one of the great cities in the world, and he's accessible. He's just sitting there having a good time, enjoying the sun.
And it was also really, really accessible from a price standpoint too. Like I think we only paid about approximately $15 to $20 Canadian, I think, per person for a really, very filling meal. But they also had like takeout options, even more inexpensive takeout options.
Exactly. It is not expensive. And I mean, they have a lot of patio seating outside. So you can I always sit, I've never sat inside, I don't think, maybe the first time, sit outside and you just watch the world go by. You watch all the local people coming back from work, or people buying their oranges or their olives or whatever they're buying at the market. And and you're right. It is extremely budget friendly. I mean, Istanbul is one of the really good deals in the world right now. And you can hop on that ferry for a couple of bucks and get a Turkish tea for 25 cents or whatever. Go have a beautiful meal for 10 or 15 bucks and you're on your way. So yeah, an amazing place. And then maybe a natural thing to do after having a nice dinner is maybe going for a bit of a soak, going to a Turkish bath. And I know you've done this, I've done this. Do you want to talk a little bit about your experiences with a traditional Turkish bath?
For sure. So this is definitely one of the unique cultural experiences that you can have when you're in Turkey, and you'll find the Turkish baths or hammams all throughout the country. They have an important cultural significance that often, historically these were where people would go to bathe before going to the local mosques, and so they're often located connected to or side by side with a lot of large mosques throughout the city. A few standalone locations throughout the city as well. I'll call out two that we had a chance to go check out when we were there. One that I mentioned in our main episode this week, Kadirka, which was really probably one of the least expensive Turkish bath experiences in the city. It's only about 25 euros. And you go in, you have sort of a steam bath experience for your first few minutes. I should say that it is very basic. It is very historical. This, I think it was built in sometime in the 1500s. I mean, very at least 300-year-old Turkish bath. No one spoke any English when we were there, but they give you your traditional cup of Turkish tea when you first get there. You go for your steam bath, then you go into the shower. And then you've got a very, very thorough scrub down and then massage from the staff there.
Absolutely.
And then they wrap you up in various towels and hot cloths and put you in another corner and then send you into another area. And so if you're looking for a very accessible, inexpensive way to do it, that's on one end of the spectrum. Another one that we went and checked out was called Ja'alula Haman. Which the spelling is quite different than the pronunciation. So I'll make sure to put that in the show notes for this week's episode as well. This one was built in 1741, 300 years. This is where you're going to find a lot of celebrity visitors going to, Cameron Diaz, I think Tom Cruise, Kate Moss, all have their pictures there in the Harrison Ford, you see as you come in their photo gallery when you first arrive. Prices here, I know there are like a little bit less expensive, but typically it seemed to be about like the 160 to 180 US range. Mm-hmm. So, you're or 150 euros and up, I think, for a lot of the treatments there. And the one thing I would say, it was named by New York Times, Condé Nast as one of the best historic baths anywhere in the world. And then because of that, it is the last major hammam built during the Ottoman Empire. You've definitely got to book in advance. Like we had a chance to go take a look at it, but we couldn't actually get in for treatments because they were booked out at least 3-4 days in advance. But that's another one worth checking out as well. What's been your experience with the Turkish baths?
Well, I've done it, a few places in Turkey. And just one note I have, that you've touched on already is that this is not, people shouldn't go in, expecting a traditional spa experience. This is not having a little bit of chamomile tea and the soft music playing and getting the massage or whatever. This, they work you out. They're stretching you. They're, I think, they scrub you down with this brush that I think they use on horses or whatever, and then they're they're soaping you down, and then they're really you're lying on that hot stone, and they're flipping you over and twisting you and contorting you and turning you into a pretzel. And I mean, they have centuries and centuries of experience doing this, so I'm sure it's good for you. It doesn't necessarily always feel good at the time, right? So just I guess a word of warning, as we wrap up our bonus episode, that recommended for sure as one of these age-old traditions that you can do in such a fascinating city like Istanbul. But yeah, you kind of be prepared that this is not really a massage. At the end of the day, this is a bit of a workout. But yeah, enjoy it.
It is very much a cultural experience for sure.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely a cultural. And one worth doing. I'll add. Yeah.
And a lot of these are like some of the most historic sites in the city. There's a lot of historic ones, but you'll also find a lot of times a little bit more maybe westernized or elevated version of these in a lot of the luxury hotels around the city as well. So that could be an option as well if you're not quite adventurous enough to get the full experience.
Absolutely. And when you do in a hotel, for sure, I've done it in a number of different hotels as well, and it definitely is a little bit more of a spa-like experience, and it may be a good entry point to try it for the first time if you don't want to go to one of the more local places. That's a great thought. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks, Ciya. Well, I hope that gives everybody a few additional suggestions. If you're planning a trip to Turkey, have a trip coming up, or thinking of somewhere you may want to go check out in the future, a few good things to check out. If you're finding our tips from around the world helpful, super helpful to us, if you can go on and drop us a review or a rating, whether that's on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to us. And hopefully you'll come back for our episode next week as well. Thanks, Tim.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, David. Have a great week.